Hi, my name is Katie Bittner, and this is assignment 3 for AEP855 Fall 2013. This assignment is a race, class, access, gender, and equity assignment, and I decided that I wanted to study English language learners in the mainstream classroom with a focus on their perceptions. So I looked on Google Scholar using those terms as my search tool, and found some articles, and then most of them aren't in full form on Google Scholar, so I've used Fort Hays University Library to find the full form of the article. So the first article that I read was English Language Teacher Expertise, the Elephant in the Room. The main idea of this article is that mainstreaming of English language learners and developments in the field of ESL have contributed to the diffusion and devaluation of English as a second language teacher expertise. English language learners are being moved into mainstream classes where teachers have limited ESL training and out of ESL and bilingual programs. This has been done to ensure an equal education, trying to avoid the idea of separate but equal. But here's some of the problems with mainstreaming ELLs. ELLs continue to be marginalized in mainstream settings. Nearly 50% of ELLs receive little or no special services, and the majority of ELLs still don't have qualified ESL teachers. Less than 8% of teachers working with ELLs had 8 or more hours of ESL training. The ongoing push for English-only programs has emphasized the rapid transition of English language learners to the mainstream with limited language support programs. Now, these are external pressures. They are getting structured English immersion to replace bilingual education. And the public discussion of English only, these kids are hearing this and their families are hearing this. So it leads to isolation, lack of participation, less meaningful interactions, and less teacher feedback. So here's some problems with the standardized testing culture. In the article, it was No Child Left Behind, but it applies to any standardized testing. The goal was to eliminate gaps, but emphasis on reading skills ended up placing English language learners in remedial reading classes. Remedial reading curriculums are inappropriate for English language learners. They don't have a problem with decoding usually. The problem was with vocabulary. And standardized testing has led to a narrowing of curriculum. Trends in ESL have also pushed kids into the mainstream classrooms. The increase in content and task-based language learning means that there's more of a focus on academic language than there is on oral or communicative language. Mainstream teachers now have to teach language and content in the same classroom. Now, teachers show mixed skills in this. Some have more training, some have less, but it's added work. And as such, they also have mixed amounts of enthusiasm about incorporating ELLs into their classrooms. Many schools have mandated ESL professional development. Now, ESL specialists are trained experts. They've got over 300 hours of ESL training. Mainstream teachers pretty much want generalized and simplified information. What can I do that's easy? Now, many teachers are not willing or motivated to really alter their instruction in the way that ELLs need. So the conclusion that we can draw then is that new learning environments must be created that both integrate ELLs and coordinate the knowledge and skills of ESL specialists. So there's some leadership challenges in English language teacher expertise, the elephant in the room. One is addressing external pressures, and the other is understanding trends in ESL curriculum. In addressing external pressures, the mainstream public is pushing for English-only education for English language learners. But research shows that English language learners have the highest levels of achievement in long-term bilingual programs. Teacher leaders can advocate for good bilingual programs, explaining the advantages to the non-ELL populations. We also have to deal with the No Child Left Behind in testing culture. Teachers who are leaders need to advocate for ELLs who are put in special education or remedial classes that are not appropriate for them. Teacher leaders can support their ESL experts by advocating for recognition of their expertise. Teacher leaders can support all students by making sure checks are in place to keep language needs and learning disabilities separate. We can also address the ESL trends. Teacher leaders need to stay abreast of current research regarding best practices for all students. When trends are affected by public policy more than by research, teacher leaders need to communicate the gaps to advocate for all. When change is necessary, teacher leaders need to inspire, motivate, coach, and reward successes with recognition. Article 2 is The Uninvited Guests, the influence of teachers' roles and pedagogies on the positioning of English language learners in the regular classroom. The abstract here is that it was a study of regular classroom teachers' views of their roles with regards to English language learners and the relationship between their teaching approaches and students' reactions and positioning of themselves in the classroom. So basically, the researchers studied 3 different teachers who had very different approaches to teaching and looked at how that affected their English language learners in their classroom. Teacher 1 looked at it like, I am the teacher of all children. All children, even ELLs, were her responsibility. Teacher 2 said, I've never seen myself as an ESL teacher. In his opinion, the ESL teacher was responsible for teaching the ELLs, and he was responsible for teaching the mainstream kids. Teacher 3 said, I'm the English teacher. The concentration was on the subject only. She felt no responsibility for English language learners' diverse needs. Okay, their approaches led to different interactions with the English language learners. Teacher 1 built a trusting relationship, used intentional approaches to include English language learners, embraced cultural differences, and sustained their culture. With Teacher 2, the English language learners were rarely approached, seldom called on to share, and the focus was on American culture, American movies, American music. With Teacher 3, she was focused on her content, so there was lots of individual work, and whenever there was a problem, she attributed academic failure to the student's primary language. If only he didn't get Spanish confused, or stuff like that. The English language learners took a different role in class based on their teacher's approach to teaching. With Teacher 1, the English language learners were integral part of the group. The English speakers were promoted to understand the English language learners, and ELL's opinions benefited everyone. With Teacher 2, the ELLs were disengaged. And with Teacher 3, ELL needs were not met at all. Students were silent, disengaged, and secluded. The power and positioning. With Teacher 1, the ELLs felt powerful. They were active participants, and they were accepted as part of the community. With Teacher 2, the English language learners were powerless and isolated. The American peers resisted accepting them. With Teacher 3, the ELLs were invisible. Some conclusions we can draw. Teachers need to understand that English language learners' cultural and social needs, and they need to understand those and then respond in a more active manner to promote student interactive processes. Teacher positioning can be a critical factor in influencing interactive patterns. Teacher approaches are related to English language learners' level of participation and positioning of themselves. And non-English language learners also follow the teacher's model in interacting with the ELLs. Here's some leadership challenges and uninvited guests. Understanding cultural and social needs, and understanding the effect that our actions have on others. We need to avoid ethnocentrism. Teacher 1 recognized that her ELL's worldviews were just as valid as her own, and was sensitive to the legitimacy of the ways of other cultures. Teacher 2 was unaware of his ethnocentrism and its effects on the kids. Dimensions of culture. Teacher leaders need to learn that the cultural and social needs of their students, and they must recognize that their students' needs may be very different than their own. The more a teacher leader learns about another's culture, the more he understands the reasoning behind actions and communications, and the less chance there is of misunderstandings. We need to understand the effect that our actions have on others. Teacher leaders understand that their students are watching and learning from them. Teacher leaders who respect and value diversity place diverse students as central parts of the community. They pass on those attitudes to the mainstream population. Through affirmative views and actions, teacher leaders inspire culturally diverse students to see themselves as a critical part of the community. Article 3 was the culturally responsive teacher. This article basically gave a big rundown of what it takes to be a culturally responsive teacher, with the main idea that to engage students, we must see them as capable learners. Here's the summary they gave. The culturally responsive teacher understands how learners construct knowledge, learns about student lives, is socioculturally conscious, holds affirming views about diversity, uses appropriate instructional strategies, and advocates for all students. Teaching ELLs requires understanding how learners construct knowledge. The researchers encourage a constructivist view. That means using prior knowledge and beliefs to make sense of new ideas. Learning involves questioning, interpreting, and analyzing. Direct instruction, memorizing, and basic skills instruction alone can limit opportunities for students to engage actively in learning. Critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration are key skills. We need to learn about our student lives. To avoid stereotypes, we need to learn family makeup, immigration history, Favorite activities. Oops. There we go. Concerns and strengths. Teachers need to know perceptions about school subjects and everyday settings and prior knowledge. Strategies for this include home visits, creating opportunities for student discussion about aspirations, posing problems to solve, and talking with parents and other community members. We need to be socially, culturally responsive. This means holding affirmative views towards diversity. Awareness that a person's worldview is not universal. It means being reflective. Not being reflective can lead to misinterpretations and miscommunication. It means looking beyond individuals and families to see inequalities, being aware of the role that school can play in perpetuating and challenging inequalities, and looking for accounts of successful teaching in diverse areas. Holding affirming views about diversity. Many teachers have a deficit perspective. That means they lack faith in students' ability to achieve. They have low academic expectations, they're more likely to use drill and rote, they give insufficient time for answers, and they call on English language learners less. With an affirmative view, we're more likely to believe that all students can learn. We teach strategies for learning. We convey confidence. We set high standards and hold students accountable. We use resources that kids bring to school. A culturally responsive teacher uses appropriate instructional strategies. They activate prior knowledge by asking questions, embed new ideas and skills in projects, provide access with native language resources, define relevant vocabulary. They use visual cues, graphic organizers, and hands-on activities, and they use examples and analogies from student lives. Finally, we need to advocate for all students. Teachers have an ethical obligation to help all students learn. Teachers serve as advocates for students traditionally marginalized. Teachers can advocate with textbook review committees, they can design professional development, and they can request common planning time with the ESL specialist. So here's some leadership challenges in the culturally responsive teacher. A culturally responsive teacher can be a culturally responsive teacher leader. The culturally responsive teacher leader understands how learners construct knowledge and shares that knowledge, learns about student lives, and encourages others to do so also, is socio-culturally conscious and spreads that consciousness, holds affirming views about diversity, and inspires others with her views, uses appropriate instructional strategies, and guides others to do the same, advocates for all students, and in so doing, gives others the courage to advocate as well. In studying the role of English language learners in the mainstream classroom and the role that teachers can play in helping those students, I've come to understand that there's a lot of leadership challenges in teaching culturally and linguistically diverse students. These involve advocating for the students. They involve learning best teaching strategies. It involves learning about their lives and finding out more about them. It also means guiding them, and it means encouraging other people to accept them as part of the community as well. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and learned a few things about leadership challenges in addressing the needs of English language learners. Thanks.